of these are going to seem kind of like no duh, but sometimes we need people to remind us of the no duh things. And that's what I'm here for. I will be your no duh friend.
Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family, or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Digital Nomad Family Podcast. My name is Marissa, and it's been a while. I know that. And I would love to be able to give good reasons as to why it's been a while. I can't. I can give some honest reasons that it's been a while, but they're not good. So I'll tell you what they are. And hopefully in some upcoming episodes, we will get into some of the stuff that we've been doing and just life stuff. So one thing that happened that has been keeping me from the podcast is I was in language school for a year. So for 1 year, we were in San Jose, Costa Rica, and I was learning Spanish. So that was a lot. It took a lot of time, and some stuff just had to get put to the back burner. And as much as I love this podcast and I love this community, that was something that I was just like, you know what? I just don't have the capacity to do it. And I tried to put in, a couple, but it was a lot. And another thing, this is where I'm like, okay, this is just me being real, people. I am not good with technology. We've talked about this in the past. I'm very open about this. And how I make my podcast, like how I physically get it from my voice into my phone and then from my phone into the interwebs is very simple. And it's so simple, in fact, that when I talk to other people that have podcasts, they are blown away that I do it that way, just because it's not the normal way to do it. Because it's the way that works for me and works for how I think. But I was using my Chromebook. I had a Chromebook, and that's what I always use to upload my podcast to. I use this site called Libsyn, and that's where my podcast lives. And then Libsyn puts it into how you're listening to it. So whatever podcast listening service you're using, Libsyn is the one that puts it there for me. So I always would use my Chromebook to then log into my iCloud, because I record onto my iPhone and then it goes to my iCloud. So then I would use my Chromebook to log into my iCloud and take it from my iCloud over to Libsyn. And it worked for me. It's definitely a little clunky. And if you know anything about technology, you're sitting there going, wow, Marissa, there's such a better way, especially if you have done a podcast or anything like that. I know there are better ways. I'm just saying this is what has worked for me ever since starting Digital Nomad Family Podcast. And something really sad happened. My Chromebook stopped updating. And it wasn't that old, and I'm actually kind of still a little sour about it, so I won't spend too much time on it. But it said it will only update for like 10 years, but my Chromebook is only 5 years old. So I was confused by that. But since it won't update anymore, one of the things that it couldn't do is I can't get onto iCloud anymore from my Chromebook. So we actually, when we left San Jose, Costa Rica, we actually just gave the Chromebook away to a homeschooling family there, because the computer itself, I know it's not a computer, it's a Chromebook, but I just say computer. The computer itself still worked as far as what this homeschooling family needed to do, like getting onto websites. You can still surf the internet. You can still do so much stuff with it. You can still type papers. You can still do so many things with it. It's just the reason I was carrying a Chromebook around the world, literally, was because it was how I got my podcast up. Well, that happened. I just kind of froze. I didn't know what to do. And so thankfully, and it's so funny because people then hear that my husband owns a online business. And as soon as people hear that Eric owns an online business, they immediately go to things like IT or something like that. Eric doesn't know like more about computers than I would say the normal average American man. And that's not an insult. He would say the same thing. He is much smarter about them than I am because he is in them every day and he can learn some hacks and that kind of stuff. But he's not an IT guy. And so it is funny when I'm like, oh, I just need to, figure out how I'm going to do my podcast. And Eric actually has a podcast as well. If you're interested in it, this is not like a plug for his podcast. I'm just saying he has one. It's Digital Nomad Entrepreneur Podcast. So our audiences are kind of different, but if you're interested in entrepreneurship, that's a funny word, huh? Go check out his. That's seriously, I didn't mean to like plug that or anything. But I say that because he's like, well, you could do it my way. And I'm like, yeah, but your way involves AI and I don't know. And like, he doesn't use AI to do his podcast, but it does something in there. I don't know what it is exactly. I think it might like listen and do the transcript or something. Again, I'm rambling, but that's why I have been away. So a combination of most of it is Spanish school, yes, but a small part of it, I would say maybe like the past 6 weeks. The reason I haven't put out in the past 6 weeks is because I've been feeling a little overwhelmed as to how to physically make the podcast. But I think we're back. We're good to go. So today we are going to continue talking about Amare Beach Club. And I said, like, if you listen to the last episode, I said in the next episode, and I seriously had all intentions of recording that episode. And that is when I discovered that my Chromebook wasn't going to work anymore. So if you look at the date, this is so embarrassing. If you look at the date of that last podcast that was put out, it was seriously maybe 3 days after that I discovered. And so it's been since then that I've been racking my brain as to be like, okay, how can I do the podcast? How can I do it? Because I can't use my computer. So that I wasn't lying back then when I said, okay, in the next episode, we really are. I just, I got a little lost, but we're back. So today we're going to continue with Amare Beach Club in Cartagena, Colombia. And we were so lucky to be able to partner with them and go out there for the day. And we just had a blast. Seriously, listen to the last episode if you just want to hear our overall experience about Amare Beach Club. And today, this episode is going to be 10 tips to make your time there even better. So these are some things that maybe had I known, or if my friend was going, I would tell you like, hey, if you want to have the best time, here are some tips, okay? And so they're not in any particular order. It's not like, oh, like stay around to the end for the best tip. No, it's not that. Like, you guys, if you don't know me, you'll get to know me hopefully, and that's just not how I roll. I just kind of talk and ramble and it works, right? Sure it works. So we are gonna. I'm first going to start with one that some of these are gonna seem kind of like no duh, but sometimes we need people to remind us of the no duh things, and that's what I'm here for. I will be your no duh friend. So my first tip is to really think through your day. We have all older kids. So I think our youngest, when we went to Colombia, our youngest was 11. And so he's 12 now, but when we were there, he was 11. So we had 11, 13, 16, and 17, or 15 and 16, in that range when we were there. So all of our kids were much older when we went to Amare Beach Club. And we had such an amazing time. There's the pool, there's the beach, there's lounge chairs, and it was just such a nice, relaxing day. But with that being said, I had older kids. Now, when we went out to the beach, which we did a little bit, not loads and loads, but we did go out to the beach for sure. When we go out to the beach, I don't relax. So I have my entire life struggled with anxiety. I got diagnosed in first grade with generalized anxiety disorder. And it's been something that I have struggled with now. When I was around 28 years old, I truly believe that God healed me in that. The person I am now is very much a much more not anxious person as I was in my teens and my 20s. And I truly believe that God healed me from the anxiety that I was experiencing. But I still struggle a little bit, right? And so it's not what it was, but it's still there. And so one of my biggest fears with my kids is water. And so if we're around water, it's especially the beach, the ocean, my anxiety definitely goes up. And so when we were out at the beach, I wasn't relaxing necessarily, but when I knew that all of us were inside the gate and there was a pool there and all of my kids could stand up in the pool, the depth is the same the entire way across their pool. It's just a really long pool, but all of my kids could stand up in it. And so when we were within the walls of Amare, it was such a relaxing time and I loved it. I could just sit on a lounger, I could have a drink, I could just relax for the day. But if you have younger kids, that's not going to be your experience. And I don't want to sell it like, oh my gosh, you're going to go and just relax. If you have little kids, you're going to need to entertain them because it is, for lack of a better way to describe it, it is a beach, right? Like that's what you have. You have a swimming pool and you have a beach. And so if you have younger kids that are going to want to be entertained, you're going to want to think through that a little bit. And if you have really little kids, maybe it's not the right time for you to go to a beach club. And I don't ever want people to hear me talk about something and go, oh my gosh, well, the Dinglers did it, so we should do it. No. Not even kind of. If we had young kids, I think this would not be a fun day unless you planned it out really well and you took toys, you took activities, you had a good amount of stuff with you that your toddler or young child could do. And so really think that out. Like, is now the right time for us to go to a beach club? If you have older kids or if you have kids that are really good at entertaining themselves with not a lot of toys, then I think it would be a great fit. Or if you just have kids that just love being in the water, great, wonderful. But if you have kids that are a little more active, they need a lot of options, this might not be the best one for you because it is lounging areas, a swimming pool, and the beach. And you don't want to have to take too much over there because you are lugging it all over on a boat. And so you don't want to have 3 bags full of toys, plus then, as we'll get to later, some snacks and water and all the other stuff that you're going to want to take. It's too much. And that's okay. Not all seasons are we supposed to do all the things, right? And so really think through, is now a good time for us to go to a beach club like this? And if the answer is yes, awesome. If the answer is no, don't feel bad about that. Don't feel like, oh, we're going to miss out. It's going to be, whatever you do in Cartagena is going to be wonderful. But it's not worth trying to force your family to do something that's not going to work for your family. So just because I'm taking 2 episodes to talk about Amare doesn't mean necessarily it's right for your family. So just think it through. That's my first tip. Just really think it through. I never want to be one of those people that almost it would totally be unintentional, but I never want to be one of those people that pressures other people to do things just because my family did it. Just because my family did it does not mean yours should, and just because yours does it doesn't mean mine should. And that's the beautiful thing about this world and the ways families are made up. So really think it through. That's tip number 1. Think it through. Tip number 2, if you have smaller kids, plan to use taxis this day. So how it works is there is a beach in Cartagena. It's down near one of the hospitals, and it's a very popular beach. You will go down to this beach, you'll get on the boat, you'll go out to Amare, you'll have a wonderful day, then you'll come back and you'll get off at the exact same beach. This beach is not necessarily conveniently located to any of the hotels. Now, maybe you happen to get an Airbnb really close to it. We didn't. Our Airbnb was about a 15-minute walk from this beach. And for us, that was fine because, again, we have older kids and we didn't take a lot of stuff with us. We had about maybe 2 bags, if that, maybe. Like by bags, I mean like backpacks, right? Like I think I took my backpack and someone else might have taken another backpack, maybe. So at most we had 2 bags. And a 10-minute walk, 10, 15-minute walk for 11 and above, not too terrible. But if you have little kids or younger kids and you're taking a good amount of stuff, you're not going to want to have to walk there and walk back to get on the boat. So plan to use taxis. And the taxis in Cartagena are really easy. They know all the tourist places, so you just give them the name of the beach and they'll take you right there. You do have to pay with cash at the taxis, so just make sure if you're going to take a taxi to the beach in the morning and then back to your house or apartment or wherever you're staying, your hotel, in the afternoon, just make sure you have enough cash to pay that taxi driver, because trust me, it is there's like something that sinks down inside of you when you have in your head that you're going to take a car somewhere and not have to walk, and then you realize that you can't, because then it's just like, oh, it literally something just like sinks inside of me. And I think it does to a lot of people. So make sure you have cash to take that taxi home in the afternoon. And that's my tip number 2. When you get off the boat in the afternoon, there's going to be loads of taxis at the hospital. So, because they know that people are coming back from all the beach clubs out on Isla Bomba. And so they're just sitting there waiting for you. So you'll be able to find a taxi. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, if you have people in your family that are nervous or even scared of water or boats, you're going to want to take that into consideration. You're going to want to talk to them about it. Never once did I feel in danger with the boat ride. Definitely going back to the mainland from Isla Bomba to the mainland in the afternoon, that was exciting. That was, like, I talked about it in the last episode, so I won't go too much into it now, but it was a thrill ride there for a little bit. And the ride is only about 10 to 15, maybe even like 10 to 15 minutes. So it's not a long ride, but I think all of us know when you're nervous or afraid of something, the time just stops, right? And it's like, this is never going to end. So even though it's only a 15-minute boat ride, if you're scared of boats or water and you're in this smaller boat and you got some good bounces going on. Again, I never felt like we were in danger, but it was definitely like, wow, this is the most bumpy. I keep saying bumpy, but I don't want to say like violent, because it wasn't violent. It wasn't aggressive. It was just wavy because of the tides, with the tide schedule. And it is going to be bumpier coming back to the mainland in the afternoon than it will be going out. So just keep that in mind and talk about it. Like, just tell your kids, if you think it's going to be helpful, you know your kids, I don't. But if you think it'll be helpful, like if they're a little nervous, just tell them, hey, we know it's going to be bumpy. You're safe. We have life vests. Nothing bad is going to happen, but it is bumpy just because of the waves and we have to come back this way. So I would just take that into account. And if you have people that are extremely afraid of open water or of boats, then it might not be a good idea for you guys to go, just because you are going to have a little bit more of an intense boat ride coming back. So you have to decide, is it worth so-and-so dealing with that stress for the day? And again, only your family can make that choice. So tip number 4 is budget to eat there. The food is so, so, so good. Some of the best food we had in Cartagena was at Amare, and it's just delicious. I wouldn't classify it as expensive, but it's not cheap. And that's okay. Like, it's okay that it's not cheap food, but it's good food. And the portions they're not huge portions. And so we only had one main meal. All six of us got one plate, like one meal. And then I think later in the afternoon, we ordered something like French fries or something to just give everyone a little more something, because we were there for several hours. We were there until I want to say from something like 9:00 in the morning to 3:00 in the afternoon or something like that. So we were there for quite a while. And so we each had like a main meal around lunchtime, because we did eat breakfast before we went. And so we had one main meal, and then we got some snacks, and then we just planned to do kind of a larger dinner that night as well. But looking back on it, I think I would have been like, hey, let's eat another meal here, and then we can just do like something like popcorn or cereal for dinner at our apartment, because that's how good the food was. It was just so good. So definitely plan to eat there. And along with that, this is my next tip, is, so we're at 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is tip number 5. I told you there's no real order. I did write them down, but I'm bouncing around. To go along with that tip number 5 would be, if you have younger kids, take snacks. Because you don't want to have to just constantly be buying them food. And the manager there is, like, the owner is amazing, and he understands kids need their snacks. He's not going to be mad. The staff isn't going to be mad if you have some snacks there for your kids. Now, I will say this. I would not take a full-on picnic for all 6 of my family, right? And not plan to eat there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, if you have kids, and by kids, I mean, they're to the point now where they don't understand, like, hey, we're going to have 3 meals a day. So like I said, our youngest was 11. He definitely understood, hey, we have 3 meals a day. All of my kids have kind of moved past that. We need snacks between meals. And now they're kind of like, okay, we eat 3 times a day. Usually, sometimes it's twice if we have a huge meal. And so, but if you have younger kids that are still needing those snacks, then take some, because you don't want to have to just buy French fries or something every single time, because that will add up, especially if you have 2 or 3 younger kids that need some snacks. So definitely think like, hey, do we need to take any little snacks? But balance that with respecting the fact that the beach club is trying to make money and selling food, and you don't want to be disrespectful to that side of things. So find that good balance, right? But definitely, if you have kids, take them some snacks, because they're going to be in the sun, they're going to be hot, they're going to get tired, and the last thing you need on top of like a tired, hot little kid is a hungry little kid. Like, that's just a recipe for disaster. So take some snacks. You'll not regret it. And then on the next tip to go along with that is take water. And I will say this for everyone in your family. Take water. I talked about on the last episode, everything at the beach club has to be brought in, including the water. So for every water you want there, you're buying it. And they have, it's actually really delicious water. It's from Colombia, because as long as they are still doing the same water, when we were there, actually, they switched their water provider to a Colombian-based water source, and it's really delicious water, and it has minerals in it, and it's super delicious, but it's expensive. And so to just get 1 bottle of water, and there are 6 in my family, so imagine how expensive that is. So take water for everybody. And then if you need to end up buying like a few bottles of water, that's cheaper than buying 12, right? And so, like, again, I'm saying this for my family. So if I had taken water, we wouldn't have spent so much money in just buying bottled water. So save your money on the water and plan to get a cocktail. That's what I say. Like, their cocktails are delicious. So take water, save a little bit of money, and then treat yourself with a cocktail. That's, I think, I think that's a better plan. So my next tip is we'll do some more take things, okay? Take towels. And Amare does have some towels that you can rent. They do have a limited supply and they do have to be clean. And so that can be a little bit tricky sometimes. When we were there, they only had, I think, 2 or 3, and there are 6 of us, and we didn't take any towels because we just planned to rent some from them. And so that was a little hard because now I'm like, okay, there's 6 of us, but we only have 3 towels. So definitely take some towels. And I think they were about, when we were there, it was about 5 USD to rent a towel for the whole day. Which isn't bad if you don't want to have to carry out. Let's say, there's 6 of you going, maybe you take 4 towels with you and you plan to rent 2 or 3. That could be, a way to save a little space on what you take out there, but then you also are saving some money at the same time. So it might not be a bad idea to take some towels with you. I would recommend taking some towels. And then another thing to make sure you're taking is sunscreen. And I know this is one of those no-duh things, like, Marissa, we're going to a beach, of course. But I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have gone to places like this, or they've done a beach day and they forget the sunscreen. So make sure you take it, because you will get so sunburnt, because there is some shade when you're inside the beach club. There are parts of it that are shaded, but as soon as you step out onto the beach itself, you're in full sun. And then many parts of the beach club are also in sun. So you're just going to want to make sure you take enough sunscreen and then reapply it, because getting severely sunburnt is not fun. We took sunscreen and we even applied it regularly, but that's our youngest. Ryan still got decently sunburnt that day, and we had to go and get some special cream for him and everything. So it's just, don't play around with the sun. So take sunscreen, make sure that you are applying it very, very regularly. So that's that tip. My next tip is I would recommend using Amare for transportation. And again, we kind of talked about taking the taxis down to the beach where you're going to get on the boat. You don't have to use Amare to get out to Amare Beach Club. You could just go down to that same exact beach and people are going to be there. I don't know the qualifications of these people. I don't know if it's right. I have no information about it. But there are people that you can just walk down at any point that you want, and you can just say, hey, I want to go to Amare Beach Club, and they're going to be like, oh, okay, great, we know where that is. And they will bring you over, and then you can just go into the beach club. And the nice thing about that is you can go down and get on the boat anytime you want. Whereas if you go through Amare, they're going to tell you, okay, be at the beach at this time, because that's when then the boat's going to leave at this time. So for us, it was be there at 9, and the boat's going to leave at 9:15. And so they're going to tell you something like that. Be at the beach at this point, and then we're leaving at this point. So if you're struggling with hitting times like that, maybe just life is going crazy, then plan to not use them, right? You're just like, hey, we'll get over there. You tell them we want to come to the beach club on this day, but we have our own transportation to get there. They'll let you do that. That's totally fine. But I would recommend using them unless you really, really can't get there for when they say to be there. I would recommend using them because for a couple reasons. One, I liked the fact that I could pay with my credit card for everything with Amare. So when we got over there, everything was put on our bill and we paid everything with our credit card. The towel rentals, all the waters, all the food, and the boat transportation. So it just made it a lot easier to not have to use our Colombian pesos for some of that stuff. So then we could save it for other things, because we did have pesos. it's nice when you don't have to use it for everything, especially we were only in Cartagena for like 5 days. And so we only got out a limited amount of pesos. And so we just didn't want to use them when we absolutely didn't have to. So I'm pretty sure Colombian is pesos. If I'm wrong, someone nicely tell me, but I'm trying to say it's been a while since we were in Cartagena. We're going to say pesos, but I could be wrong on what their money is called. So I would recommend using Amare to get there and to get back. It's not that expensive. I think it's going to be very, very similar to what the other, with what the other boat captain, maybe not the right word, but what the other boats charge is probably going to be similar. Maybe you would save a little bit of money if you went through the other people, but I would definitely just recommend going through Amare for your transportation for the boat to get there and back. And then to come back, you're going to have a couple options. Usually they do 2 runs back to the mainland. And so you can pick, do we want to go home a little bit earlier or stay a little bit later? We stayed a little bit later, and I think we went home around 4 o'clock around. So that's my tip about the transportation to get across the water. When you are there at Amare, be ready for vendors. We talked a little bit about this in the last one as well. So again, this isn't all new, but this is a tip I have. Depending on if you have girls or boys, like if your kids are girls or boys, sometimes it's really hard for them when they see something and they want to buy it. And then we're like, oh no, like we're not going to get that. That can be hard for kids. We all know that. And I say like boys and girls because there are vendors that come in that offer to braid hair. And so like if you have a girl that maybe wants her hair braided, or there's vendors that come in with some jewelry. And so like that could be hard for a little girl to, to be like, oh, like I want that bracelet. And you're like, oh no. So just talk to your kids, tell them, hey, people are going to come in. They're going to be selling stuff, but we're not going to buy anything. Or if you do want to buy a bracelet or something, plan to take money, and you can tell your kid, hey, at some point, someone's going to walk in here selling bracelets, we think, unless, again, things always change in the world, right? So I always tell my kids, like, I never make things 100%. This is how it's going to be. I'm like, hey, there's a chance someone could come in here selling something. And if they do, I'll let you buy one. So just have that conversation first, because unless something changes with Amare, when you go, there will be vendors that come in. They're allowed to come in at 2 different times. I talked about it in the last episode as well. So go in and do that. Then outside of the beach club, but when I say outside, you can still see in, because it's just like a white picket fence that is separating the club property from the main beach property. And so your kids are going to see the people out on the beach. And there are people that have boogie boards. I would recommend not doing that, because those people it was just an underhanded situation that happened with that. And so I would not get boogie boards. That would, like, as your friend, I'm telling you, just stay clear. There's also like donkey rides. It's like a mule. It's like a donkey or a mule. I don't know the difference between a donkey and a mule. I'm learning that about myself. And so there's something that you can ride. And then sometimes there's jet skis that you can rent as well. So just talk to your kids like, hey, we're not going to do this, or we are going to do this, and then plan accordingly. Those things do take cash. So have cash for those activities. And those are my tips. That's it. If you listen to the last one, you might be like, oh, that was super similar, but I don't think it was. Maybe you do. I don't know. That's okay. But I really do recommend thinking through these tips. And then if it works for your family, I cannot recommend Amare Beach Club enough. We had such a relaxing, fun day, and the food was amazing. And still to this day, 2 of our kids say that it was their favorite part of being in Cartagena. And then it was funny afterwards. The reason we went to Cartagena is because we were in San Jose, Costa Rica, and we needed to do a visa run. because we get now, hallelujah, praise the Lord, US citizens get 6 months in Costa Rica. And so it had been 3. And so we only had to do 2 visa runs the whole time we were there. Because when we first got there, it was 3 months. And so we were there for 3 months. And then we did a visa run. Right after that visa run, it changed to 6 months. So then we got another 6 months. So then we stayed in San Jose for 6 months. And then we went to Cartagena. And so then when we got back to San Jose, we had a friend, and a few months later they were like, hey, we're going to go over to Cartagena. And they were like, what did you do? So I told them about Amare, and they ended up going to Amare, and she said it was amazing. They have 3 kids. They're all much younger than my kids. I think their youngest is 4. So they're sitting at around 4, 5, and 7 or something like that. Like their 2 girls are pretty close in age. And they said they had an amazing time. So again, every family is different. So I don't want you to hear like the ages of her kids and that they had a good time. Like that's not even still saying that if you have a 4-year-old, it's the best choice for you. I'm just saying maybe their youngest is 5 now. She's in that zone. But they had an amazing time, and it made me so happy to hear. I'm like, it's just a great place. The staff is amazing. And that's what my friend said. She said the staff was so fantastic to us, so helpful, so kind, so respectful, and they just are. So if you are looking for a beach club in Cartagena, Colombia, out on Isla Bomba, Amare is the place to go. You won't regret it. It was wonderful. So with all that being said, I think we're done, right? I think those are really good tips. I hope they're really good tips. And I really, really, really hope and pray that this is the beginning of the podcast coming back. I know it was a while there, but I'm excited to keep it up and keep talking to you guys. And I really have missed this. So it makes me happy that it's going to be coming back here. So thank you for listening. I hope that these were helpful. And as always, I hope that you continue to travel joyfully.